Welcome to the Evolution of Mom. We are your hosts, Amy and Shreese, and we hope you enjoyed our last episode with Brigitte Beer on the first ingredient is love. Today's episode is with Amy Cothren from the Mama Mindset. She is a mama who is dedicated to helping and empowering women to do the work and to change their mindset and take charge of their life. So we're really excited to be talking to her today.
Yes, so excited to collaborate with another podcasting mom who is just so driven by serving other women.
Yes.
Hi, Amy and Shreese. How are you guys?
Hi.
Hi.
Nice to see you.
I know. It's nice to meet you guys. We've been chatting for a little while, but we haven't actually had a chance to do this. So I'm excited.
I know this is, all of our kind of jams. So it's nice to get together and just talk about mom life. And
I know, I'm so excited. I feel like we have a lot in common and we are very aligned with the same ideals. So I'm really excited to bring some value today.
I know. I feel like when we had kind of talked before about what we were going to talk about, we ended up having a huge long list of things because we align so well. Maybe we should just get together in person for a solid weekend and hash out everything.
I would not be opposed to that.
No, not at all. When the world opens back up, I'm I think there's going to be mom retreats everywhere that we just go and chill.
Yes.
All of us together.
Yeah, I love that.
Mom and mindset and all the stuff.
Yeah. So your guys' approach, as much as we align, it's slightly different than mine. So I would love to hear, just for my audience, how your guys' approach is maybe a little bit different and what value you bring to moms, because I think it's really powerful.
Thank you.
Well, I think it kind of starts with both of our backgrounds. We're both backgrounds as registered massage therapists in Canada, and Amy's retired now. I'm still working, but it started from a physical level. We learned a lot about the body and the hormone system, digestive system, all that kind of stuff. But as we started to grow and as we started to change, we started to develop this emotional level, mental level, the spiritual level, and so we believe health in general. And I think our highest state actually comes from engulfing all of it, mind, body, and soul. Right. So we do really like to talk on a holistic level and making sure that our needs are met as moms and as women on all of those levels.
Mm-hmm. And being very conscious of your external environment as much as your internal environment, as they both play together in such a beautiful community in your health.
Yeah. So I love that approach, and I'm just really curious on my end, what shifted in your guys' confidence to take what you already know and what you've been practicing in your everyday life? What shifted in your confidence and your maybe abilities and your approach to be okay, now I want to share this with the world. So we've been doing all of these things, but I feel like I have a voice. So when did that shift happen, and how do you think that happened?
Sharice and I met at a public speaking event. We were both sharing the stage, talking about our passions, that we're both on women's health in some way. Yours was on mindset and lifestyle. Mine was on health and hormones and more the physical body. And we came together after that and both were just your presentation was amazing. Yours too. Our stories are so different, but the feelings behind it were all the same. And we became friends after that. And we've been on this growth journey separately for sure. So it just brought up a lot of beautiful conversation every time we would get together. And I think one night on the couch after hours of deep, good conversation, it was you know what? Every woman needs to hear this. Yeah. Every woman needs to go on this journey for themselves and hear that even though all of it is different, it's okay. And whatever is your individual journey is your individual journey, as long as you're excited to grow. And I think it was you that was just we should probably just have a podcast.
Yeah. I'd been saying that for so long. I was we have all these words and we should be just letting people be able to hear them. Right. I was doing it on a one-on-one basis in massage so much. Uh-huh. And as much as it was physical, I found myself speaking from a mental space, speaking from a space of trauma, speaking of this space of healing, which isn't really within my scope. And I was okay, maybe we should just dive into it a little bit more. And I know you've talked about it too. It's no matter where we come from as women, the underlying feelings and the underlying emotions are the same, right? Like Amy's a
Right.
stay-at-home mom, she homeschools. I'm a working mom, I'm a single mom, but there's a lot of those same like feelings of stress, overwhelm, feelings of like being empty, where we're taking care of everybody else, not putting our needs first. And so even though we can all come from different stories, those feelings and those emotions are still the same.
Mhm.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. So, my stories, I don't have a partner in crime. I think it's beautiful that you guys have come together to do that, but I feel like I've really worked on like my mind, body, and soul independently, and so I have all of this knowledge, and I talk to Brad about it, my husband, or I talk to like a girlfriend about it, and I'm like, I have so much to say, and I feel like I want the world to learn from my mistakes and from my experiences because there wasn't anybody like that out there for me when I was just starting on my journey. So that's kind of how I came into podcasting because I was like, well, I'm listening to all these other people and I have a voice and I want to share that knowledge and that wisdom and but the confidence shift for me, really going back to what you guys do and specialize in, that confidence to do that came from when I was working on my mind, my body, my soul, and
Yes.
all those things at once, where I was like, I feel good. I feel confident in so many ways that I have now have this space to open myself up and then share it, if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely. That's so, so beautiful. We have learned so much from our individual traumas that when we started talking about them, which I love that this is what you're doing too, and I'm sure you're finding this, as soon as you start talking about the things that you have gone through, and here's where I was, here's where I am now, and here's where I'm going, I find a lot of women, especially when you're in this phase of talking about your traumas and where you've come from, it gives them this beautiful space to be like, oh my gosh, me too. We both found that as soon as we started sharing our stories, especially when we started public speaking, and that's what landed the most in other women. They would come up to us afterwards and be like, I've never heard anyone talk about their life that way. And I've never talked about my life that way, but I resonate with your story so much. I feel the same way and I am so lonely. So it is amazing to hear you share your story because it's similar to mine and I had no idea. And so I
Yeah.
think the more we do that, just like you're doing, the more we can change the world and the more we're going to allow other women to open up and share their stories and just connect in that way.
Yeah, and like what Charisse was saying, it really levels that playing field between all women. So it doesn't matter if you're a working mom, a single mom, a stay-at-home mom who's homeschooling, like it the conversations that we're having, even though we have different niches and things like that, like this is relatable to all women. These are all struggles and issues and conversations we should all be having, which is so beautiful about these podcasts and the value that we're bringing because people are connecting in all kinds of different ways.
Mm-hmm. And it's that like it's that collaboration, right? And that understanding that we can all work together and we can all share our light. Like just because one woman shines doesn't mean somebody else's light dims, right? And I
Right.
love that is like because we have that tendency, especially as women, to compare, right?
Hmm.
I'm not as good of a mom because I leave my kids in daycare, 5 days a week, or like there's always those like, am I doing this right? Am I doing this right? Because one hand says, breastfeeding, the other one says, well, formula feeding's okay. Like, and there's all these different schools of thought, and we're all wondering at the end of the day whether we're doing it okay.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Um, I love that. One of my episodes, I think we've even talked about that, actually touches on that. And it it really, like I was saying, it really like levels that playing field and tells you like you are valuable and you are worthy no matter what your job is or no matter what your roles are. You're valuable and you're worthy. Every woman is valuable and every woman is worthy.
Absolutely.
It's not our natural state to feel that way, though, we're finding, right? I mean, obviously, we've
Right.
gone through that transformation as well, and it's still something we deeply work on, right? We're not like at the top of our mountain yet where we have like arrived at our highest best self. Our goal is to grow forever, right?
Right.
Always constantly chasing the next best version of ourselves. But it's crazy how that is women's natural state, and whether that like it comes from how we are raised, how there's so many things that bring us to that state of worthiness and or lack of worthiness. And I find the first thing to go in women's lives is their self-care, is their self-love. And when you come down to the base level of why that is, and there's always the excuse, I don't have time, I'm busy, I don't need to do those things for myself, I'm perfectly content. But I'm finding the most underlying reason and cause for all of that is there's not that worthiness. I
Right.
deserve to take care of myself.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I think too that it's never been modeled for us, right?
That.
We are kind of breaking um, generational conditioning,
Right.
because we did see like the model of the sacrificing mother,
Yeah.
right? Or I mean, for me, like my mom wasn't around as much, but we did learn that it's been modeled in TV shows and all sorts of stuff over and over again, is that when you are in a relationship, you serve other people, and
Mm-hmm.
we forget to serve ourselves.
Yeah, I think as we identify ourselves, you know, we talk a lot about people talk a lot about identity and how you identify yourself. And I think as moms, we tend to only identify ourselves as a mom. And then when you think of that word mom or mother, you, like you said, you immediately think of selfless, giver, nurturer, and that is so external, that's so outpouring, and that becomes your role, that becomes your identity. So your identity is now full of giving and outpouring, that there isn't even like an inkling of you receiving.
Yeah.
And that goes back to the self-care. In order to receive, you have to give to yourself too, and receive that to yourself. So how do you guys prioritize? Charisse, you're single mom, working mom. Amy, you're stay-at-home mom, and we're all busy in our own ways, so there's really not even a comparison because we're all kind of all lacking in time and space. So how do each of you prioritize this mind, body, soul relationship with yourselves?
Um, so for me, being a single parent, that was when this actually came to my forefront. And I'm actually so grateful that I've gotten that space, because I had to learn how to take that space at first, because my kids spend 50% of their time at their dad's house.
Mm-hmm.
And I went from being like the main caregiver doing all the things in the house to all of a sudden I had half my time where I didn't have my kids. And so I had to learn how to take that time, but take it freely, because at first when I started to take that time, I felt guilty.
Mm-hmm.
I'd feel like, does that mean I'm a bad mom because I actually really enjoy my time alone? No, right? Like it actually gave me that opportunity to learn how to pour into myself and recognize that I'm a better mom for it. And
Mm-hmm.
so that's why like it's so important for me, and it's one of the things that I talk on a lot, is being able to date yourself. And whether you're in a relationship or not, you have to remember your first and foremost relationship is with yourself, and taking care of you in those needs. So for me, time alone, time quiet is huge. But self-care looks different for everybody, right? I've now like putting on makeup every day just so that it gives me a little bit of feeling of like I can conquer the world. But that doesn't mean you have to put on makeup every day just to feel like that. It took me a long time. Like I had my counselor ask me like, what brings you joy? What fills you up? And I didn't know, because I was so used to serving to everybody else. So it's taken me these like little steps to be like, oh, I really like this. And I like lean into that a little bit more.
Mm-hmm. And I like how you talk about like your coffee.
Yeah.
Right? Finding joy in that like beautiful latte art coffee, right? Taking those moments. And that's what it is. It's about recognition. It's
Yeah.
about recognition in what brings you joy as an individual. And I think, like you talked about, we start to identify as moms or whatever hat it is that we wear, that we lose that. When someone asks, like how Charisse was asked, well, what brings you joy? Not you, the mom, not you, the spouse, not you, the employee or the entrepreneur, but you as an individual. A lot of us can't answer that question.
Without
Right.
saying if everybody around me is happy, then I'm happy.
Then that's fine. I'm happy. That's great. Everyone's great. So I'm great. When in reality, that was the big mind shift for me was I love giving. I love being a mom and being able to say that I have that beautiful space of caregiving and all of those things. But when you're pouring from an empty space, it is not the same as pouring out from a space of fulfillment.
Yeah. I
And
love that.
I was able to recognize that I was completely pouring into those around me from a complete state of depletion.
Mm-hmm.
When I started this journey, sorry, go ahead.
Oh, go ahead, Amy. It's okay.
Okay. When I started this journey, my journey to self-growth and to where I am now actually came from a space of chronic illness to health, and really recognizing that my chronic illness was taking obviously so much from myself that I was trying to ignore it and just give as much as I could from the space that I could. And I thought I was doing such a good job. But in reality, by not healing myself and not pouring into myself, I wasn't giving the best of what I could be to those around me. And that hurt my heart because I want to have everyone be given the best of me, including myself.
Yeah.
And so understanding that what's best for you is what's best for everybody else. When you have things that you are doing that's time to yourself, like for me, I don't go and out and do a lot of things when, like, as far as like leaving the house for work and things, I work from home. It's important to find those moments still. So I get up before the kids. That's a big one for me. I get up before the kids, have a hot cup of tea, get some yoga in, and hopefully there's enough time to like get some reading in or do some sort of mind work that way. That's how I get it in, because I promise anyone out there who listens that is giving from an empty space, once you realize what it's like to give from a space of fulfillment, you see the difference and you feel the difference. So pouring into yourself and learning what that means to you is so, so valuable.
Yeah. I love that you work on your morning routine. That's something that I talk a lot about in my podcast too, is embracing your morning routine. And there's a lot of people that feel like they're not a morning person, and I guarantee them, if you can learn slowly through little steps to be a morning person, it will fill your day and start your day off so much better because you've poured into your own cup first and foremost. It's like, I think you guys have even used the analogy, and I've used it a couple times, of the oxygen mask in the airplanes. Like, you have to serve yourself first before you can go out and serve others. And that's on a very like day-to-day basis. If you think of a 24-hour period, serve yourself first thing in the morning before the kids get up, and then you're better prepared to go serve others throughout the rest of the day. But I was just recently kind of tying that all together. I was just recently reading a book called The Kids Are in Bed, and it talks specifically about leisure time after the kids are in bed, and how, as women and as parents, even men in general, how we're choosing to use our leisure time isn't really serving us. So, stay at home moms, working moms, everybody, we actually have, if you really break it down, quite a bit of leisure time. But then at the end of the day, how we're using that leisure time isn't filling our cup. So we still want more leisure time. So everybody's saying, like, I need more time to myself, more time to myself. Well, statistically speaking, we actually all have more time to ourselves than we have in a really, really long period of time. And we're choosing to, fill our cups by binging on Netflix or whatever, which is fine if you're using that intentionally, like if that's what you want to do.
Yes.
So in the book, they talk about actually making a list of things that you love to do. And whether that's, doing a crossword puzzle or a jigsaw puzzle, anything that takes you like 5-10 minutes, or if you have an hour to 2 hours, make a solid list of things that you love, not what you feel like you're supposed to love to do. And then when you get these pockets of time, 10-15 minutes, or like Charisse, even if you had like a whole day, how am I going to use this entire day to fill my cup without putting the pressure on yourself of like, oh my gosh, I have to do all of this stuff so that I do fill my cup. Like, does that make sense? Like, you don't want that pressure on you, but you want to be true to yourself, to just really be able at the end of the day to be like, I really used my time wisely. And by doing that, I'm ready to take on the next adventure the next day.
Yeah. It's definitely, I feel the same. Like it's the intentionality behind it, right?
Mhm.
I used to drink a cup of coffee without actually paying attention. Like I would say I love a cup of coffee, but I wouldn't pay attention to it. And now when I drink my cup of coffee that looks like art, I like take in the sight of it. I take in the
Mhm.
smell of it. I hold the coffee in my mouth for a little bit longer. Like it's slowing down and actually allowing myself that space to like really enjoy it. Because I think as moms, we typically get caught up in the shoulds, right? Instead of just enjoying it. It's like we're taking a bath, but we're like, I should be, I should be doing this, right?
Mhm.
Instead of just allowing ourselves that space to just be in the bath. And I love what you're doing now, where you're taking a day to yourself, even if you're in the house, but your husband knows like this is your time or this is your space where you get to go out. So
Yeah, tell us about that a
yeah,
little bit. Tell us
Oh,
about your mind
yeah.
shift around your weekend.
Yeah, my mind shift on my weekend has been really powerful. And I don't know if Brad actually, it's not even really something we've talked about. It's just something that's kind of happened organically that I've just kind of been doing almost selfishly without being selfish. I know that kind of sounds bad, but it's really not. To be
That's
selfish is
what.
not necessarily a bad thing, and it serves me. So, when we're home as a stay at home mom, you're home all the freaking time. So, especially right now with the pandemic, we're all really stuck at home. So, um, our days all really start to run together. That's actually one of the beautiful things about being home is like a Monday is the same as a Saturday, Tuesday's the same as Sunday, like it all runs together. But for me, Brad works Monday through Friday, so I do have another set of hands available on the weekend, and I take advantage of it. So instead of like in the mornings getting up and doing like my quote normal routine Monday through Friday, I go for a walk by myself, and he stays in the house with the kids, and I do a 45-minute walk, which I can't do when the kids are around. Just yesterday, I got some of my editing done, and I took some time to go sit in the hammock with a book, and I poured a glass of champagne, and I went very intentionally because Brad was in charge of the kids, and I took some time to myself just because I freaking could, and I can't always do that during the week. So, like, allowing myself on the weekends to have a weekend, and there's nothing wrong with that. I don't have to mark off, 10 things on my to-do list because it's a Saturday or Sunday. Like, I actually have the availability to do some of that stuff during the week and then take a little bit of leisure time on the weekend. And he supports that, which I'm very blessed. I know, not all women have the support of a spouse in that way, but he is supportive. So, he'll make breakfast for the girls in the morning one weekend, one day on the weekend, and I'll go take a bath. And so just taking advantage of that and shifting my mindset to, I don't have to run the household when he's home. I can take a little bit of a step back and kind of allow him to take the reins a little bit and release some of that pressure from myself, which is very hard for women to do, to
Mhm,
allow them to do that and to empower them to do that in their own way.
yeah.
mhm,
And I think that's like, it's super important because I think deep down, like our partners, regardless, they want to see us happy, but we don't know how to ask for what it is that we need or to take that space without feeling guilty. And
Hmm.
so releasing that guilt and being like, this is what I need because it fills me up and I'm a better partner for it. Right.
Hmm.
Because like when I was in my relationship, I would get caught up in that resentment because I couldn't take that space and I wouldn't ask for that space. And then when I did ask, I would feel guilty for asking. And so then it would just get pushed down and bottled up. And then I would get resentful because of it.
Yeah.
Right. Whereas when we start to take that space, we don't hold on to that resentment. We know that this is a partnership. We work back and forth, and it allows him to serve as much as we serve as well. Right.
Right. Yeah. And I think this idea of, you guys were talking about joy and how hard it is to find our joy sometimes, and getting asked that question, what brings you joy? I even have a whole episode on that. And I recently had that probably about a month ago where I was like living this life, and just every day I was outpouring. And I actually ended up talking to Brad about it. Like, I don't think I did a fucking thing for myself in the last week.
mhm.
Not a single damn thing. And then when you stop and you think about it, And he was like, wow, you really need to investigate that and reflect on it. So when you think about it, you're like, well, what brings me joy? And you're like, crickets. Shit, I don't know. Wow, something's wrong with me because I don't know what brings me joy right now.
And it
so
spirals into who am I?
yes. So like,
can I even feel joy?
Yes. Am I dead? Am I alive? Yeah. What's going on? I mean, I love my kids, but wow. Yeah. So I think that's really, really challenging for us sometimes, and allowing ourselves to feel. And I think that's a lot of what joy is just allowing ourselves to feel and to be happy. So in the past, month or so, I've been just like, okay, well, what makes me feel good? That's what brings me joy. So like sitting in the hammock with the cool breeze, reading my book, that makes me feel good. So I need to do that. I need to enjoy that.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Good for you. I'm so proud of you.
Yeah, I know.
Your champagne and your hammock, like that's so beautiful.
And I didn't even have my phone. I didn't have my phone with me. I didn't take a selfie. I didn't share it with the world. I mean, I'm sharing it with the world now, but it was just such a beautiful moment for me, and we all need to do a little bit more of that. And going a little bit further, my oldest had woken up from her nap, and she immediately was like, need this, need that, need this, come do this with me, come do that with me. And I was like, mommy's taking a minute. Like, if you want to join me in the hammock for some quiet time and some soft space, like that's great. I'm sitting here, looking at the trees up above, and do you feel that soft breeze? And so then she kind of relaxed into the moment too. But I was like, I'm not getting up right now. I'm taking a second for myself, and that's okay. You're more than welcome to go do something on your own, but this is what I'm doing to enjoy myself right now. And the kids understand that.
And it's such a good thing for them to see. Right.
Mm-hmm.
Because you're going to teach them now that to take that space, or even feeling your bigger emotions around your kids, and showing them how you deal with it in a healthy way, right? Instead of suppressing is another one. So I think that's so beautiful for our children to see. So a lot of moms listening to that might be like, oh my gosh, I could never have done that. I absolutely would have had to get up and get her a snack, and I would have felt so guilty in this. Like, just think about it from a different perspective for just a second on how beautiful that was for her to see you take that time for yourself. Right. And then your whole family to see how you come back from that hammock moment differently. And even when you say that some women's spouses aren't as supportive in these moments because they might not understand yet, but as they see these little moments, you don't even have to discuss it. It's just like an energetic knowing that when you came back from that hammock moment, I bet you were a more present spouse. I bet you were a more present mom. And they start to just feel and recognize that. I mean, like, happy wife, happy life for sure. Right? Because we do tend to run the energy of the household. Absolutely. But it's so beautiful for everyone to see, because not only that, it, like, for me, when I started doing that, I noticed my husband asking himself those questions. Am I taking time for myself? Am I having these moments of joy? Am I right? And now we're both recognizing that, both taking those moments, and we're coming together so much stronger.
Yeah.
Well,
it does help everybody.
You're not relying on another person to fill that hole. You're learning how to fill it yourself, right? And I think that was a biggest piece for me. And that's something being single has taught me, is that I have physical, mental, emotional, and spiritual needs. And right now, like, I have to learn how to fill my own cup, and then I can attract the partner that will come and add to that. But I know that I'm not always placing my external happiness on somebody else, because that can be taken away. I know that I have this space in me that at any given time, I can give myself whatever I need.
Oh my gosh. And that makes you so beautiful. I mean, that makes you so attractive and sexual. I mean, seriously, like,
so great.
When we feel that way, we feel vibrant, and our spouses and our partners, they're attracted to you. You're going to attract people to you because of what you're pouring out to others. You have more to give because you have given to yourself. And I think that's amazing. I think, so I have another episode too that we talk about, giving so much to our kids. We're kind of in this society right now where our children are like this all-consuming thing, and at the end of the day, it's only one small piece of our entire lives where we're like actually physically taking care of their physical needs at home. And then what happens when they're gone? We have given so much of ourselves to them. And then it's like, oh shit, I don't know who I am. I don't know who my spouse is and my partner is. And like now what do we do?
Mhm.
So I just encourage people to have those conversations with each other now and have those conversations with yourself, like who you are and finding the things that you love to do outside of your kids. So you're not giving so much to them because it's a disservice to them too, because that's so much pressure to put on them. They're because they can see that your happiness is dictated by them. And that's a lot of pressure to put on the kids. I've seen that. I've witnessed like kids move out and the parents are so attached to them that they have nothing left.
Yes.
They don't even, and so they're like clinging to whatever they can with, and their kids almost remain kids instead of growing into adults because we don't give them the space to grow into their adulthood, right? Because we're like, no, but you need to serve me, right?
And all of a sudden, women don't know who they are.
Exactly.
They've lost their sense of purpose, their sense of who like that wholeness is. And I mean, I think this is a topic that needs to be talked about so much, because when kids, the average age of a divorce, I believe right now is 18. The kids are 18, they've become adults, the parents divorce. Like after high school, I can't tell you how many couples I knew that when like my age group of high school, how many parents split up that were in my friend group. Right? Because they're not doing that kind of work. And I think this is a generational thing too. You talked about breaking generational,
it is.
What is the word?
Conditioning.
I was going to say curses.
It's
a curse.
Yeah.
But you know what I mean? We're breaking that because up until now, it's give everything to your partner, give everything to your children, but that's not serving anybody, because your children are gone. You as a couple, you don't even know who you are as a couple outside of being parents anymore.
Yeah.
So again, as selfish as this sounds, being selfish is so selfless when you really think about it.
So my parents have a hard time, and they're pretty supportive, but there are moments where they're like, "You're going on a date? Man, that would have been nice when I was your age to be able to get out of the house and go on a date." And it's like, and it's not just my parents; it's other couples in that same generation, that us taking time as a couple is so selfish of us. And I mean, that's bullshit, first of all. And I've had, I've had that conversation like with my parents, like, I'm sorry that you were not able to do that, or you didn't prioritize that when you were younger, but we have done the reflection and we have had the conversations like, this is what we need. And a lot of times for us, just a dinner out or something isn't enough of a date night for us. Like, we need a night to ourselves, a whole night to relax into each other and decompress and just spend that time together, and that intimate time together that doesn't happen with just a quote date night. Like, the pressure of a date night is almost too much. But that generational pressure of like, you think you need a date night once a week or even like once a month. They're like, I thought you just had a date 3 weeks ago. Like, yeah, we should probably have one every single week, but it's really, really tough.
For me, I get the, oh, it must be nice because you have this time to yourself. And I was like, and so I hear that, right? Like my dad raised us, he had us 100% of the time. And so he's like, I didn't have that luxury. And I'm like, even when my partner comes in, I'm still going to take myself on solo dates. Like, because I also know that I need that space for me so that I'm a better person. And and I'm like, I'm blessed with the opportunity to have been able to solidify myself in that space so that when a partner comes in, I have no problem saying, listen, I just need my time and I need my space. And I also know that I need space with them to grow as couple as well. And that's like, it's not, you can't give everything all the time.
And that's
I love it.
That's the shift that's being made generationally, right? We're seeing now that people are willing to pour more into themselves in that selfless way, right? And that counts as being a couple too. I know we get a lot of outside comments and influence on Chris and I's life as well, on how we do things, but it's it's very powerful when we can come at it from a way of, I know, isn't it amazing that we've grown to prioritize inward things over surface external things.
Right.
I find the generation before us, it's very external, external validation. You know, your perfect lawn is more important than the moment you had with your family on the weekend where maybe you didn't mow the lawn, like those kind of things. And I just think it's a beautiful shift that's being made.
Yeah. Yeah. And Charisse, I love that you're capitalizing, I'll just say capitalizing on that time that's available to you, because I've witnessed other women in similar situations, instead of taking that time to improve on themselves and beautify their souls and really get to know themselves, they kind of go down this dark, almost, oh, poor me kind of area. And you're really taking that and being like, all right, like, how do I lift myself up, and how do I take this opportunity to improve myself and better myself and really capitalize. I don't know if that's the best word, but capitalize on this beautiful opportunity. And I think that's amazing. I think that's really, really admirable.
Thank you.
It's very inspiring.
It
Yes.
I had asked Amy a while ago. I was like, what am I like really good at? And she's like, I don't want you to take this the wrong way, but you're really good like single mom. And I was like, you know what? I actually don't take that the wrong way, because I actually feel like I have intentionally like done that. And that is what I've worked towards, is getting so strong on myself. Don't get me wrong. The first 2 years out of my marriage were extremely messy. And it
Mm-hmm.
took a lot of missteps for me, because I was trying to fill a void that I couldn't fill.
Mm-hmm.
And I was looking for it in external circumstances. And last year with the pandemic really kind of like halted me for a second. And I said, like, because you can't, I didn't want to online date and stuff during the pandemic. And then all of a sudden I couldn't meet anybody. So I was like, maybe this is my space. This is my time. Like, the universe has given me this time to actually get to know me and what it is that I desire, and also allowed myself to be my own hero of my story, instead of looking like we get these conditionings as kids that we're the damsel in distress and we're looking for a white knight to come and save us.
Mm-hmm.
And I had to, like, I've now become the hero of my own story.
Mm-hmm.
And that was like that big realization on me, that I'm like, I don't need somebody to save me.
Yeah.
And embracing the mess.
Yeah, exactly.
Right? Like, it wasn't easy. These journeys are not easy. So I don't like, it's hard when people are like, well, I could never do what you ladies have done. You're so, XYZ. It's like, we were messes.
Yep. Our messes are message, right?
Yeah.
Our mess is the lessons. And what you do with your mess, you can choose to have that victim lack mindset where you spiral down here, or you can choose to have abundant growth mindset. The difference is the choice. And then it's a journey. You don't just all of a sudden fly up here, but you have to be willing to take those little consistent steps. And that's what changes.
I love that. I talk about that a lot in my episodes, almost to like, I feel like women are going to be like, okay, Amy, like, back off. I get it, because I'm like,
No, it's important.
I'm like, you have to do the work. You have to do the work. You have to take one step in front of the other and put in the effort, because these things don't just happen. They just don't appear out of thin air. Like, you see these people that we look up to, or you see a mom that seems to have it together, or a CEO of a business, if you want to go that route. And they didn't get there just like that with a drop of a hat and it just magically appeared into bright, shiny rainbows. Like, they put in every piece of the work. They put one foot in front of the other the whole time. And I love that. And I love that's where you guys are coming from too, is like, you're putting in the work and you're doing those things for your life without those, like you were saying, Amy, those external factors. Like, you're doing that stuff yourself instead of hoping and praying that somebody else or something else will happen to you. You're going out and you're saying, like, nope, I'm going to grab this and I'm going to take this and I'm going to do this and I'm going to strive for it.
Mm-hmm. We actually did an episode on how your internal environment is what controls your external environment.
Mm-hmm.
And that's, so if you're worried and stressing about all the things that are showing up in your external life, and I mean, it's a hard message, but you're allowing it to be there.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So I think that was a really powerful episode. It may be a hard truth on some point, but it's a beautiful way to to look at how you do have more control than I think we do.
Well, most of our anxieties and stresses, and this is a huge mind shift for me too. Like, it really shifted my level of stress throughout the day. Is you're probably stressing and anxious over something that hasn't even happened yet. So why are we putting ourselves through that? Like, why are we worrying about something that is fictitious, right? It's not even anything that's occurred yet, and you're making it all up in your mind. I
Mhm.
don't understand. It's something that I'm working on. That's where most of my anxiety and stress comes from. Um, the to-do list that hasn't gotten done or whatever. Well, you're stressing over not getting it done when you haven't even taken a step to work on getting it done.
Yeah.
That doesn't make any sense.
Yeah, you're allowing it to hold too much space in your life and in your brain when, when we're stressing about things that could possibly happen, we're actually causing the stress more than once.
Right.
If it happens, then take your moment to stress and pivot and switch and whatever you need to do. But up until then, it's holding too much space, right?
Right.
You're
Yeah.
putting yourself through it more than once.
Yeah. Well, and we stop living in the now, right? Like for me, you can get stuck so much in the past, which is like you're replaying stuff that you can't fix, or worrying about the future, which is hasn't happened yet. So instead of just being now and being present and allowing those moments to like, it is what it is, right? That I had to sit there last year and say, this is what it is. Like, this is a circumstance that is beyond my control. So I can either go and try and figure out, like, try and force an outcome, which would usually end me up in a relationship that I don't want to be in, or I can allow it. Like, what is meant for me is exactly what is happening for me right now. Like, everything is happening for me, not to me.
Ooh, I love that one.
Right.
Yeah. 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 And just allowing the universe in that space to speak to you, I guess, if you really want to go deep on that, and just listening to, like, okay, it is what it is. Why is it this way? And just relaxing into that moment, and then kind of seeing what happens. But still, it's interesting because we talk about that. We would talk about relaxing into the moment and allowing things to happen, but also on the flip side, we're like, but take one foot in front of the other and go after it. So it's just finding that balance and that confidence. We kind of talked about that in the beginning, like that confidence to take a step forward, um, when you're in that moment, because by relaxing into that space, you're allowing the universe to speak to you, and then you can listen and say, this is what it's wanting, this is what I'm supposed to be doing.
Yeah.
And doing both are great. Taking
Yeah.
action is great. Relaxing is great, but do both with intention. I'm
Yeah.
going to relax right now. I'm not going to allow these action steps that I know I should be taking run my mind right now. I'm going to relax. I'm going to
Mhm.
choose to do this guilt free. And then you're going to choose to have those intention moments or those moments of action and growth. It's about the mindset around it. And this work that we talk about, the mindset work and stuff, you can honestly, and I know a lot of people who are in the midst of their traumas right now might not understand this yet, but you can honestly learn to see your traumas and your mess as a beautiful thing.
Right.
Honestly, anything you're going through, you can learn from, you can share and help other people go through it. Like you have your marital trauma, your things that you went through growing up. I have my health trauma. And yeah, in those moments, those things ruined our lives in a way. But now we see them as this beautiful thing. And it's a huge part of where we are now, why we're doing the things that we're doing. We see the lessons in it and we see how we can serve others from what
Mhm.
we went through. So we can
Yeah.
actually look back and see it as a beautiful thing, even though it wasn't that way at the time.
Yeah. So I have an episode talks about, like, trying all the things. Get out there and try all the things, because I would rather have people try things and fail than not try anything at all, because that's being brave and that's being vulnerable. And if it doesn't work out, you still have succeeded. You still have learned something from it. Maybe that's not your jam. Maybe that's not, the road that you are supposed to go down. But how would you have known that if you wouldn't have tried, if you wouldn't have
Now
made
you
the effort?
know.
And now you know. Exactly. Yeah. So when I was starting out as like a new stay-at-home mom, that wasn't a route that I necessarily well, for sure that was not a route I was originally going to take. I was like career woman, boss babe, like this is what I was very focused on, dream job. And so then I kind of stepped into this stay-at-home mom role, and I tried all the things. I tried the like DIY flip furniture. I tried, do I want to look into like online marketing or MLMs, or do I want to, try selling things on Marketplace? Do I want to try doing all of these things? And I kind of failed royally at some of them, and that's okay, because I figured out like that's not what I wanted to do. And then I tried gardening, because I was just drawn to, our property and that space. And turns out I'm pretty good at it. But I wouldn't have known that had I not like tried all of these other things and failed, or not succeeded. I don't want to say fail, because that's a really heavy word, just not succeeded or not aligned with them. And here I am doing some things that I absolutely love to do.
Good for you.
That was my first step. When my counselor asked me what brought me joy and I couldn't give him an answer, I just started trying things. I sat with the question, and I was like, what do I like? Oh, I like dancing. So I went and took a dance class, right? I like singing. So I went and took vocal lessons. I just tried things out to figure out what was meant for me. And I mean, if I hadn't taken those steps, like taking my vocal lessons, I may not be here and having a podcast, right? It taught me how to start sharing my truth a little bit more. So it opened me up to that kind of thing, right? So just take a first step in whatever direction, right? But it also is you starting with that feeling. I think the feeling is the first part, and then you just move in that direction as the feeling. You release the how. Releasing the how is the big thing. I don't know how it's going to look, but I feel this, and this is the action step I want to take.
I'm all about failing forward. I love that so much.
Yeah.
I don't think there is a fail unless you give up on something or don't try something at all.
Yes. That's
right?
a disservice. That's
it
such
is.
a disservice. Yeah.
It is. And coming at something new or something that's on your heart or an idea that you've had, we constantly, I mean, our brain always tries to keep us safe, right? And so we constantly are like, oh, what's the worst that could happen? Well, what if you shifted that mindset into what's the best that could happen? What's the best that could happen if I tried this? And that kind of mind shift has honestly changed my life.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I know we wouldn't be here if we if we worried about the how and what it was going to look like, or what the outcome of having a podcast would be. We wouldn't have started.
No,
right?
But what's the best that could happen if we did? Well, we could change some lives.
Yeah, you reach one person and you've changed one person's life. And it's
That's
like,
right.
and that's exactly what, when I started, I was like, if I could just reach one mom and if I could help one person, then my role is fulfilled,
And in a self-serving way. Like this brings us joy.
Yep.
I know this for you is a gift for you that you have discovered that brings you joy and a sense of passion and purpose.
Right.
Yeah. For us, the world shut down. We couldn't public speak and educate women like we like to do. So we made the shift.
Yeah.
Right. And it fills our cup just as much as we hope it fills others.
Yeah. It's growth through vulnerability, right?
Yes.
You're growing through your vulnerability and taking a step into the unknown. And if we never did that, how would we ever grow? By doing something brave, by taking dance lessons and singing lessons. And I just interviewed another beautiful woman, and I haven't released the episode yet, but she's constantly taking classes and community classes and trying new things. She's like getting into beekeeping. And I mean, it's just like, it's badass. It's awesome. But like doing those super vulnerable things is where you find your growth. Sitting on the freaking couch and watching Netflix every day, all day is never going to grow you. And, we've talked about that before, how much of a disservice that is to you and to me and to the world around them. Like not just their immediate family, but you never know what the ripple effects of your vulnerability could lead to. Like you guys being vulnerable and putting yourself out there and being brave is changing people's lives. It's amazing. It's beautiful.
Yeah. I like in your episode, the You Are Worthy episode, you talked about that. You're like, I almost take it personally. If you don't live your best life, I take it personally because you're affecting me at the end of the day, right?
Yeah.
Like if you didn't take this step to live your best life and lean into what it is that you do, we wouldn't have met.
Mm-hmm.
And therefore, like, I mean, I've grown from this podcast just listening to you talk, right?
Mhm.
Like it all serves us at the end of the day. And that's like, what is best for you is what's best for everybody else.
Yeah, I love the connections that it makes too. So you were talking earlier about how you're, making an effort and putting on your makeup every day, and it makes you feel good and it makes you feel confident. And so I kind of border between like no makeup or a little bit of makeup, and I kind of had this phase where I was like, nope, I'm stripping everything down raw. I'm not wearing any makeup, and I'm going to be super brave when I go out in public and date nights. And I really wanted to get like to my true core, right? To my true self. Well, then there's like a shift that needs to happen, because then it's almost like I'm not taking care of myself enough and presenting my best self to the world. So in one of my last interviews, we kind of touched on that hot mess mom culture and how bad it's getting. And she doesn't leave the house in her yoga pants. She doesn't leave the house. She puts on her jeans and she puts on her makeup. It doesn't have to be a lot, but she makes an effort, because her point was, you never know who you're going to make a first impression with and where that could lead you. So like, me interviewing Trish and having that conversation about making that effort and putting your best foot forward and your best face forward, and you doing the same thing, and me being inspired by all of that. Now, all of us women have grown in a connection in this circle, and then who else is going to be inspired by that? And now we're changing people's lives in all of these different circles.
Mm-hmm.
That's amazing.
And it creates a beautiful community. We do an
Yeah.
episode on how powerful your community is. Like, I know a lot of women don't have a friend circle where if Charisse one day said, you know what, I'm not going to come out. I'm not going to come to this thing because I need a day. I need to take care of myself. I've been outpouring. I've been this. How many of your friend circles would be like, oh, really? Like, no, this. Whereas we have a group where we're like, yeah, you should do that. Good for you. We've got this. Like, you need to do that. Right? It's a different mindset. It's
or
a different thing.
You get the, oh, good for you, like lucky for you. You get to take that day. It must be nice, right? Whereas
Yes.
like,
oh my gosh, I used to get that from friend groups when I would travel away from my kids, or oh, that must be so nice. Yeah, it is. It's freaking great. I do it on purpose.
You should try it. Yeah. Exactly.
Right. Where then there's this shift. And I know that that's our goal with our podcast and our group as well. And I know it is for you, is to create a community, a safe space for women to come and talk to people, because maybe they don't have that in their life.
Mm-hmm.
I would way rather someone reach out to us who we don't know, who is in a situation where they don't have someone to talk to in that way, and pour their hearts out to me with whatever they need to say, instead of keeping it inside because they don't have someone in their life that's going to understand that and share that. Like, that's our big goal, is to just create a community, because that is what changed our lives. We have, yes, individually grown, but the community we have surrounded ourselves with has set us up for success, because our external environment affects our internal environment. And when you're allowing that to dictate your life, you're doing yourself a disservice.
Yeah. Well, and I was lacking in connecting with people that way. So I'm like, how do I find that? Okay, I'm going to go create my own. So I see all of these people that I can connect with, but because I'm able to connect to a lot of people in a lot of different ways, but am I really like fully aligning with them and then growing from this? And I'm finding like I'm not. So I'm like, I am not the only person out here that feels this way. I know it. I'm not weird. I mean, sometimes I think I am. I'm probably a little weird, actually. Right? But I'm like, I know there's an abundance of people out there, and the way I think is not unique, but people aren't talking about it. So if we can start the conversation, then we build those communities, just like you were saying.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And bring together the people that are talking about it.
Yeah.
Right. Yes. It's that, you brought this up earlier, that not collaboration over competition. Right.
Yeah.
Instead of us looking at your podcast and being like, oh my gosh, she has the same views as us and she's talking about the same things we are, like, meh. No, this is great. Let's get together and talk about it more.
Yes, exactly. Because we're going to learn from it and we're going to inspire each other in different ways. I mean, that, like you said, that's already happened in this episode.
And you're going to connect with people differently than we're going to connect with people. I mean, even if we're talking about the same things, your experience gives you a different outlook. a
Yeah,
little bit,
absolutely.
right? So it's so good to come together, even though we have the same views, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. I
We could
love
talk
that.
forever.
That's what I was going to say.
We
I'm
could
like
talk
pretty
forever.
sure we've been talking for about an hour. So
Oh, geez. Okay. I'm sorry.
Break this one up a little bit. That's fine.
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah, I'm like, I mean, we could go on for sure. So we might have to do
Yeah.
this again
I
soon.
think so. I think we should have a part 2 one day, even though this will
Yeah.
probably be.
Yeah, that's awesome.
But
Well,
sure.
is there anything else that you guys, before we like sign off, is there anything else that you guys want to
like
ask
a
or chat about?
takeaway, right?
I mean, a big broad takeaway is that self-care and selfishness really is selfless.
Yeah.
Giving from a space of fulfillment is an incredible shift from giving from a space of emptiness, and just sitting with, am I giving from a space of emptiness? Am I outpouring more than I'm inpouring?
Yeah, for sure.
I think,
Oh, go ahead. Sorry.
oh,
Sorry, Therese.
okay.
Go ahead.
I mean, for me, like the one thing that I like to say is your relationship with self first has to come first and foremost. Like
Yeah.
that is top priority. And then, because if you don't know yourself, you can't possibly know everybody else and help everybody else.
Yeah. Yeah, I love that. And I think in order to do all of those, I think my biggest takeaway from what I try and kind of project on my podcast is like putting in the work, on
Yeah.
all of those things that we've talked about is you actually have to do it. You actually have to take some little steps forward and do the brave thing and do the work. So
Mhm.
I'm curious though, because I'm a reader. I love to read. So are you guys reading anything right now that you're like super passionate about? And you can edit this out and take it out. What? Oh my gosh, did I
You
just
have
ask
to?
a question? Is it a dirty book? Are you reading a dirty book?
It's not a dirty book, but the book is called Pussy. And
Oh,
it's
okay.
literally changed my life. And every woman needs to read this book. It's
I love
by
that.
Regina Thomas. I don't know how to say her last name. Mama Gina. She's like School of Womanly Arts in New York. But she
Okay.
talks about claiming our feminine nature and our feminine like power by getting in touch with our pussy. So
Oh, I love that. Oh my gosh.
and I'm like, don't talk about the pussy book. Don't talk about the pussy book. And then I end up like talking about the pussy book because it's like literally every woman needs to read this book because it has changed the way that I even present in the world, right? Like
Yeah.
this sensuality, sexuality that you had kind of like mentioned that I exude, I guess, has only really been happening in the last like
I love
week.
that you asked this question so
That's
much.
awesome.
I swear, Charisse wakes up every morning like, I'm not going to talk about this book. I'm not going to bring up this book today. It's not going to happen. And then she just...
I love it because you guys just had your amazing pelvic floor episode too. So like you're really
Right?
studying like the woman's anatomy and then how it brings about femininity, which is honestly like absolutely beautiful. And I had some notes to even like touch on that with you guys, this idea of masculinity and femininity. And I think
we
it's
should do an episode
absolutely,
on that then.
yes, I really think that we should, because it's a powerful conversation to have, not just like, I don't feel like it would be powerful enough if like one person was to just do it. So I think having a conversation would be really amazing.
It is, like you said, we're all about holistic health and a whole way of looking at things. And that's a big part of a woman's health, not only on a physical and hormone level, like I like to talk about, but on this feminine connection level that Charisse is so amazing at. Like I lean on her for that.
Yeah.
It's incredible. I'm learning a lot from her for that. And it's a part of your health. It's a part of the things we need to talk about that we're not allowed to talk about. Like it's crap.
I'm putting it on my must read list.
Do it.
It is like seriously, because we're in this like patriarchal world, and I think this is where women suffer the most, is because we get caught up in the do's, right? All the books written about success are about habits and about like doing and about like blah blah blah, and so we're always like we should, but we also want to be present and be a mom, and we want to do all these things, and we lose our joy because we're not actually tapping into us. But as women, as the divine feminine, our like main priority is pleasure. Like that, it's what brings us pleasure, what brings us joy. And so tapping into that and letting go of this like masculine hard push grind, like make things happen, and surrendering to the flow is you tap into the power of pussy, really.
It's
I
going to
love it.
change the world.
Yep.
I love that. So what are
Um,
you reading, Amy?
My goal was to also read a book that was more feminine empowered. And actually, I'm really enjoying. Do you know who Samantha Skelly is?
Uh-uh.
Sam Skelly. She's
Okay.
incredible. She's a breath coach, facilitator. She is super magical. And she has a book called Hungry for Happiness.
Okay.
And the principle is based on your relationship with food, but it's just the example it uses when really it's about your wholeness in your life as a woman. Honestly, it's really incredible. So Hungry for Happiness from Sam Skelly has been awesome.
Oh, okay. I put those both sound amazing, and I'm putting them on my must-read list.
What are you
That's
reading?
What do you got
Um,
going on?
yeah, so I'm reading The Naked Mind. Have you heard of
Oh,
that one?
no.
It's actually about controlling your alcohol consumption.
Mhm.
And I know that we've talked about that before, like this hot mess mom culture and using wine as like your only outlet and escaping life through that way. So it actually is a really interesting approach into I'm only about halfway through it, but into why we're drinking alcohol, how we're being sold this idea of drinking alcohol. And she says right in the beginning, like, you will read this book and probably never want to drink again. And it's true. So and for me, I'm just kind of, and she says you don't have to stop drinking when you're listening to the book or reading the book. But yeah, it's really interesting because it brings up some interesting triggers for like historical information and things in my life and people's individual lives. Like, when did you start drinking and why did you start drinking? And this idea that none of us really loved alcohol when we started drinking, and then how that plays into like college. And then when Brad and I met, it was in college. And so, I mean, not to go into it too deep, but those are some really interesting things to reflect on. And that goes back to, what are you putting in your body? Why are you putting it in your body? Is this habitual? Is this addictive? Is this a problem? And are you really serving yourself in the best way by actually poisoning your body?
Mhm.
So, and it's interesting for me to read it because I went to school. I didn't finish the program, but I went to school for wine marketing for a while. After I got my bachelor's degree in business, I went back to school and studied wine marketing. And so I actually had classes where we were tasting wine as a class, you know. So, and it's something I feel very passionate about learning about. So to read this other perspective is a very powerful mindset shift for me in an idea of something that you're putting into your body.
I've actually been diving into like my relationship with food and my relationship with alcohol,
Yeah.
because there is this like scarcity mindset around food, that was kind of developed in my household. Like we never really had desserts, we never really had like treats in the house, and when they were in the house, like it was consumed.
Hmm.
And so I've been trying to heal that relationship with my food and allowing myself to know, like, this isn't going away. I can have it anytime I want. Nobody's handcuffing me and telling me I can't have this. And
Hmm.
so it is like my relationship with alcohol, my relationship with sugar, all those kind of things are coming to the forefront right now. But I also recognize that there's a lot of pleasure around food and around alcohol. So I have like kind of changed my mindset in looking at, if I'm going to choose to drink, why am I choosing to drink? If it's to
Right.
escape my day and to numb out, then I don't, right? Same thing if I choose to like eat something that is going to give me a dopamine rush, am I doing it because I need to escape my life, or am I doing it to take pleasure in it, to enjoy it? And
Yeah.
um so I'm allowing myself to have it, but being aware of my relationship. And I think that's actually going to move it out of my life more, because
Yeah.
I don't need to have it to have pleasure, but right now it's one of the few things that bring me joy, is like food and alcohol. And I
Right.
say that, and I'm like I don't even like saying alcohol brings me joy, but it's like that social atmosphere, which connection is part that I crave big time right now.
Mhm.
It's like one of my top core values. So
Hmm.
that's interesting. I definitely am
It
gonna look
is.
that
And
up.
I think the difference between all of it is mindset awareness, and intention. How much of this are we doing unintentionally? So it's so funny. Like we're both on this deep journey of intention with food, intention with all the things we're doing. It's the next level of our health journey. And so it's so amazing that you brought that up, that you're kind of doing the same thing. So the Sam Skelly book is very like around the awareness of food and just your mindset around it. So
it touches on that. It touches on that conscious and subconscious parts of our brain, and it's super fascinating to me when you read the book and then you take a step back and you start reflecting on the choices that you're making and why you're making them consciously and subconsciously. I don't know, it's fascinating. And that's like, so when I was sitting in the hammock, we talked about the hammock story, I poured a glass of champagne because that was what I intentionally wanted to do. I knew I could have sat out there with reading my book and been really happy, but I wanted to feel, I guess, maybe adult in that time when I was with myself, aside from being a mom. And so there was a little bit more intention behind having a glass of champagne in the hammock with my book. It was just, the way I perceived it and approached it was different than just like, okay, it's the afternoon, it's time to get a day buzz on a Saturday,
right. Yes, the intention, the mindset, the awareness, and that's about everything. So everything we've talked about today can be bottled up into that category. Are you intentional of what you're doing? Are you just allowing your day to run you, or are you being proactive about it first thing in the morning and then you're winning the day already, right? All of those things can be broken down into putting in the work to have the awareness, to shift your mindset, to learn intention about where you want to be going. Right. I think that's it in a nutshell. Right. And you can keep growing through that. And there's growing pains along with that, but no one ever says the work wasn't worth it. The journey wasn't worth it ever.
Well, you guys are awesome. This was
You're
so amazing.
Awesome. We're gonna have to do like episodes 2, 3, and 4 on your relationships with food and alcohol. And then we're gonna do one on pleasure and your book.
Yes. Oh my gosh.
Into all of it.
I love it.
Thank you so much.
Yeah. Thanks, ladies.
Take care. We'll talk soon.
Okay.
Bye.
Thank you everyone for joining us today. And thank you, Amy Cothren from the Mama Mindset, for joining us as well. If you wanted to connect with her, her link is in our show notes. As always, if you find value in this episode, please share it with someone you love and leave us a review. We would love to hear your feedback. And don't forget to put yourself first, because you can't pour from an empty cup.
That's right. Self-care is selfless. We are very excited about this episode. That was incredible. We love you guys. Thank you for being here. If you would like to connect with us, our details are also in the show notes. We have a Facebook community that we would love for you to be a part of. We are dedicated to creating a safe space for women to connect and talk about whatever they need to. So please connect with us in any way you feel comfortable. And as always, thank you to the Next Level University. We could not be here doing this without you. We appreciate you guys. Bye.
Bye.